Neurophysiology, that is basal ganglia. So basal ganglia, these are the scattered masses of grey matter, and they are mainly concerned with the motor activities of our body. So let us focus on some of the components of the basal ganglia. So there are main three components of basal ganglia. First is the corpus striatum, second one that is the substantia nigra, and the third one that is subthalamic nucleus of Leys. So the first component, that is the corpus striatum. So corpus striatum is basically divided into two different structures. So the first structure, that is the caudate nucleus, and the second one, that is the lenticular nucleus. So caudate nucleus, as you can see in this diagram, that caudate nucleus, it is a bulge portion and it has the head as well as the tail. So this is the portion of the caudate nucleus, which I have marked with the red marker. So that is the caudate nucleus, and second one, that is the lenticular nucleus. So the lenticular nucleus, which is a part of the corpus striatum, but because of the white matter plate, or I can say the structure of the white matter, which is named as an external medullary lamina, it is divided into two portions. That is the outer portion, that is the putamen, and the inner portion, that is the globus pallidus. So now let me write it over here, that this portion, a portion of corpus striatum, the first portion, that is the caudate nucleus, that is caudate nucleus. So caudate nucleus, which is a bulge portion as well as it has a tail also. This area, that is the putamen, and this structure, which is the thalamus, and here the end portion of this tail of the caudate nucleus, which is also known as amygdala or amygdaloid body. And this much area, right? So this much area, which is a space, or I can say the cleft for the internal capsule. So which is a cleft for internal capsule. In short, I write it as a IC. That is the internal capsule. So in this diagram, you can see that the caudate nucleus, putamen, amygdaloid body, thalamus, and the cleft for the internal capsule. Now comes the second component of this basal ganglia. The second component, that is the substantia nigra. Substantia nigra, actually, if we try to understand this word, the substantia nigra means it is a mass of a grey matter. And the third one, that is the subthalamic nucleus of Leys. So as the name suggests, it lies below the thalamus. So these are the three components. Let me revise it. So first thing, that is the corpus striatum. Corpus striatum has two portions, that is the caudate nucleus and the lenticular nucleus. Lenticular nucleus again divided into two, into the outer portion, that is the putamen, and the inner one, that is the globus pallidus. Second component, that is the substantia nigra, which is a mass of a grey matter, and the third component, that is the subthalamic nucleus of Leys. So I hope the components of the basal ganglia are clear to you. Now let's jump to the functions of the basal ganglia. So functions of the basal ganglia, they are little bit complicated as well as difficult to understand, but I will try to simplify it. So first function of the basal ganglia is it helps in regulating the muscle tone. So function number one, that is helps in regulation of the muscle tone. So in one of my video of spinal cord, I have mentioned that in the anterior horn cells, one of the cell in the anterior horn of the spinal cord, that is the anterior grey horn of the spinal cord, named gamma motor neurons. So these gamma motor neurons, they are mainly responsible for increasing the muscle tone. What the basal ganglia do? Basal ganglia from the cerebral cortex, right? Basal ganglia is situated in the cerebrum. So from that cerebral cortex, so basal ganglia inhibits this gamma motor neuron present in the anterior grey horn of the spinal cord through a descending reticular system. So let me write it over here, that the functions of the basal ganglia, in which, for example, this is our central nervous system, and here we have a cross section of the spinal cord, in which a butterfly shaped gray matter is there, and anteriorly we have gamma motor neurons. Gamma motor neurons, they are basically going to increase the muscle tone. So these are the muscles. These are the muscles. So gamma motor neuron, when they fire up, they increase the muscle tone. But the basal ganglia, which is there in the CNS, so basal ganglia, through the descending reticular system, that is descending reticular system, it inhibits the gamma motor neuron, so it gives an inhibitory signal. So ultimately the muscle tone will be reduced to normal level. I am not going to tell you that muscles will be in the state of hypotonia, but when the basal ganglia is intact, there is no pathology, basal ganglia will inhibit the gamma motor neuron and helps in the regulation of the muscle tone. Now comes second function of the basal ganglia, that is the helps in the motor activities of our body. As I have mentioned earlier, that basal ganglia is mainly concerned with the regulation as well as the integration and the coordination of motor activities. So now we will understand how does the basal ganglia do these things. So second function is helps in the motor activities of our body. To understand the motor activities of our body, we must know the origin of motor activity, that from where does the motor activities are initiated. So motor activity of our body, they are initiated in the cerebral cortex but controlled by the basal ganglia via neuronal circuits present in our brain. So these neuronal circuits are basically present between the basal ganglia and the different areas of the brain. So now let us understand one of the neuronal circuit. So we know that voluntary activities, they are initiated in the cerebral cortex, that is the motor areas, right? So there is premotor area, second is the primary motor area, and the third one, that is supplementary motor area. Right, so these are the three motor areas from which the motor activities are initiated and they are present in the cerebral cortex. Now, fibers from here, fibers from premotor area, primary motor area and the supplementary motor area, they are reaching up to this particular thing, that is the caudate nucleus. Right, so that is the first one. From the caudate nucleus, they are again going into second one, that is putamen. And from the putamen, they are going to globus pallidus. And from the globus pallidus, they are again going into three different areas. Now these three different areas are actually the components of the basal ganglia, that is the substantia nigra. Let me write it over here. That is substantia nigra, subthalamic nucleus of Leys, and the last one, that is thalamus. That is the most important structure, because from the thalamus, fibers from this thalamus, they are again going into the premotor area, primary motor area and the supplementary motor area. So this is one of the neuronal circuit which is present in our brain. Now, the most important thing is there are few fibers which are from these three motor areas. They are going directly into the putamen, right? So from the premotor area, primary motor and supplementary motor area, directly reaching towards the putamen. So these are also the part of the neuronal circuits. I hope you get the idea of neuronal circuit which is present, and if you focus little bit more in this circuit, you will notice that there is a connection between the cerebral cortex, basal ganglia and the thalamus. So any activities which is initiated from these three areas of the cerebral cortex, it must pass through the basal ganglia, it must be relayed by the thalamus and again going back into the cerebral cortex, and then it follows the descending, or I can say the pyramidal track, and going in the upper limb or lower limb or the trunk of our body, right? So these are the neuronal circuit. I hope you get the idea. Now from this motor activity, I get another idea that we have some activities which we do consciously, but there are some other activities which we do subconsciously. Okay, so the regulation of this conscious activities and the subconscious activities, which is also done by the basal ganglia, right? So there are fibers in this neuronal circuit that when the fiber arising from the cerebral cortex reaching up to the caudate nucleus, the fibers between these two, right? For example, if I consider that these three are a part of the cerebral cortex, fibers from cerebral cortex reaching up to the caudate nucleus, these are concerned with the conscious activities, and as I have mentioned, some of the fibers reaching directly up to the putamen, so that fibers, they are concerned with the subconscious activities of our body, right? So basically the neuronal circuit is very, very complicated, but it is interesting too if you want to understand that how does our body regulate each and everything and what are the connection between the different structures of the brain. Next function of the basal ganglia, that is, it helps in the arousal mechanism. That globus pallidus as well as the red nucleus, these are the structures which helps in the maintenance of the arousal mechanism of our body, and whenever there is any kind of lesion in the globus pallidus, a person may feel drowsiness or the sleepiness during the daytime. And the last function of the basal ganglia, that is, it helps in the automatic movement of the body. Means for example, if you are talking to someone and your facial expressions, they are being changed. Okay, if you are walking in the garden and your hands are automatically, they are swinging, right? So you are not supposed to control your facial expressions and your swinging movements of your arms whenever you are walking. Okay, so these activities, these are the automatic activities. We are not supposed to control it and we do not have control over it. So these are the activities which are controlled by the basal ganglia. So I hope the components and the functions of the basal ganglia are clear to you. If you like my video, do like, share and subscribe this channel. Share these videos maximum and do subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to get these kind of neuronal circuits again on this channel. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching the video till end.